All right, NITA, let's talk about how to be a real advocate in the virtual world. We have been flying the plane while we're trying to fix it, while we're trying to figure out the best way to fly this particular plane. And it's time to kind of land the plane, take a minute, and figure out how to utilize this technology to be real advocates for our clients who have real problems. So we're going to take a minute and talk about real advocacy in the virtual world. We're going to talk about the Zoom platform because that's what NITA is using, and that is also what the courts where I'm from here in Atlanta are using. But there's also Blue Jeans and Microsoft Teams, WebEx. All of these programs have pretty similar features. So whatever platform you're using, become familiar with that platform. The principles are the same. We don't want the technology to drive us. We want to drive the technology. So the first part of this, we're going to start pretty basic, and we're going to talk about Zoom functions. This is great if you're having a party, if you're meeting up with friends, if you want to have fun, but it's just not very professional. We want to always be our best professional selves. We want to be authentic, but we want to be professional when we're advocating for our clients. So the goals of this are to master the basics, to learn to use the features. We're going to get a little technical, and then we're going to talk about advocating effectively. There are 4 different parts to this talk. So let's start with the basics. If you already know the basics of Zoom, then you can probably skip this section. But some people need a little help just kind of figuring out how to navigate the platform. So we're going to talk about that for a minute. The basics. How do we get on the call? How do we use the microphone and the cameras and things like that? When you join a Zoom meeting, you get this kind of white screen, right? And it asks you whether you want to join with audio. This was a question for people early on. Generally, you want to connect with the internet audio or your computer audio if the audio is good. You can also call in. You could have 2 lines connected to the Zoom call so that if something happens to your connection, you have a backup. Let's not share our screen, okay? Everybody has been in a meeting where somebody has inappropriately shared their screen. Sometimes it's inappropriate, sometimes it's just annoying, but either way, if you're unintentionally sharing your screen, you're kind of showing that you don't really know how to use the platform. And there may be things on there that you don't want people to know, so let's not share our screen. And we very rarely want to invite others to other people's meetings. Okay, so you have these options here. If you click the up arrow next to the microphone button there at the bottom, what you'll see is that you have options. You can choose your microphone if you have more than one, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. You can select your speakers, so if you have external speakers, if you have headphones plugged in, whatever you want to do there, you can choose which speakers you're using and which microphone. And I would say play around with it, right? If you have more than one option and see what works best for you. Headphones. You see a lot of people with headphones. If you are in an area where there's a lot of external noise, if you're going to be distracted by that, or if the noise that's happening around you is going to be distracting to others, go ahead and use headphones. If you don't have to use headphones, I think that there's this kind of misconception that you have to use headphones. If you're in a pretty quiet space, if you're lucky enough to have like a dedicated office, you may not need headphones. So think about whether or not you want to use them. Other options here: test, speaker, and microphone. All right, so let's do that. Let's test our speaker and microphone before we log on. We don't want to be the person going, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? It's just not super professional. I don't think it's going to give our clients a lot of confidence that we're confident in what we're doing if we have to guess whether or not people can hear us. And you don't want to be guessing, right? You want to know so that you can focus on your message. Same situation with the camera. Most people have a camera in their laptop. That's great. It will work. Your camera on your phone will also work. If you're logged on with your phone though, one, there are less options for functionality. Two, don't be the person walking around with your phone, carrying your phone, filming it in this kind of choppy Blair Witch Project distracting way. Don't walk around during a meeting. If you have to walk around during a meeting, if you have to walk around during court, go ahead and stop your video. And stopping your video is something we all need to do a little bit more of, quite honestly, because it's distracting if we're not focused on what's going on. People will be focused on you walking around your house doing whatever it is, looking how clean your house is, honestly, probably. All right, virtual background, super controversial. Justice Ginsburg, one of the greatest legal minds in our country, would not be as compelling if she had this as her background. So let's just skip the virtual background, guys. I have a virtual background though, so let's talk about the difference here. None's a great option if you have a background that is not distracting. You don't want people looking around your house trying to figure out what's going on while you're talking. So if you have things in your background and you can see on the screen what other people can see, think about it. Is this something that people are going to be distracted by? Is that what they're going to pay attention to? Because I don't want them paying attention to those things. You want to stay kind of as neutral and professional as possible if you use no background. And it does make you super authentic. My background is a blank wall, so it makes me look like it's a booking shot, and that's not the look I wanted. So I took a lot of time to figure out what virtual background looked kind of natural, and I chose this one. This is an option, but it does look kind of newscastery, and it's not necessarily the best option for everybody, but think about the virtual backgrounds you want to be using. Okay, so when you log on at the top of your personal screen, if you're in speaker view, your little box will be at the top, okay? And there's this button, right, of 3 dots. And you can click on that, click on the ellipse, and what you'll see are these options. There's a lot of features here. There's a lot of functions. There are a lot of functions that you may want to utilize during your Zoom meeting or Zoom court. You can rename yourself. So if you have a shared account with your spouse or with your family and you log on, you know, with the Deets family, usually when you're in court, you don't want to log on with the Deets family, right? I want to log on as Annie Deets. I want to use my professional name when I'm logging on to court or for a professional meeting. Do not rename yourself Carol Baskin from the Tiger King. Like, it's funny, but it's just not professional and it's distracting. And that's the main thing. We don't want to be distracting. If you are a person who likes to check yourself out and fix your hair and are constantly messing with yourself while you're on the video, and I get it, because it is distracting to be looking at yourself, basically a mirror image of yourself as you talk. It's distracting. It's so tempting. I would say go ahead and hide the self view, right? Check it out. See how you look on the camera. See where you want to be looking. Check out your light, and then hide the self view so that you're not distracted. Again, message, not the messenger. All right, so we're going to talk about stopping the video here. If something is going on in the background, right? If there are things happening at your house, if there's chaos, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but go ahead and stop the video. If you stand up from your computer, if you're going to leave for a minute, go ahead and stop the video. And once you click the stop video, if you have chosen a profile picture for yourself, that's what appears on the screen instead of you. It's a nice feature to have a really professional headshot that takes your place when you step out of the video. And that's, again, something that shows up when you click that little ellipse at the top. So think about having a professional headshot or just a shot of yourself. Probably not something in a bar or something like that, but you know, something that looks professional. Okay, so muting and unmuting yourself. I would assume when you are in court or when you're in a meeting, for our purposes, that you are unmuted. You will likely not be unmuted. But if you always err on the side of everybody can hear what I'm doing, there is no chance that somebody's going to hear the details of your personal trauma, drama, whichever it is. That happened in court the other day, and I felt horrible for the person that it was happening to. But if we're in a court setting, and we're going to talk a lot about this, act like you're in a court setting. If you wouldn't be talking about whatever fight you're having with your partner in live court so that everybody could hear, don't do it in the Zoom meeting. So be really aware of when you're muting and unmuting yourself, okay? And the button's easily accessible, but just keep an eye on it. Some microphones also have a mute feature, so just watch when you're muted and unmuted, okay? And it happens to all of us. Sometimes we think we're unmuted and we're not. Just handle it. All right, so if you look at this, your default when you log on is the speaker view. This is really why you want to stay muted. If the judge has their Zoom setting or whatever setting in speaker view, the camera bumps to whoever's making noise. So if you have ambient noise in the background like that, even if you don't think you're talking, what happens is the camera switches to you and everybody's looking at you anytime you're making noise. Most courts have speaker view. If you are examining a witness, you want to be in speaker view. If you are addressing the court, you want to be in speaker view so that you're looking at the court when the court is speaking or when the witness is speaking. So that's the default setting, is speaker view. But if you click that button at the top that's circled, that gallery view button, right? If you click to gallery view, this is what you get, the world's most powerful Zoom meeting, and there's no political commentary intended here. All right, so gallery view is awesome for training so that you can see everybody. Encourage people during training sessions to share their video. It's really hard for those of us who are used to kind of that adrenaline bump that happens when people laugh at our jokes or people smile when we're speaking, to be speaking to people's profile pictures or blank screens. So encourage people to go ahead and share their video during training, and stay in the gallery view so that you can, if you're doing drills, you can call on people. Gallery view is a good option for training. All right, manage participants. If the host is asking you to raise your hand, and you're like, where is that? That's where this is. If you click participant view, you get these options over to the right. Okay, so that allows you to raise your hand virtually, answer simple yes or no questions. You can ask the speaker to speak more slowly. You can ask the speaker to speed it up, right? I'm in a hurry. The host may ask you, how's the pace of this program for you? And that's really what they're asking. There's some other functions there, like if you need to take a break, there's a feature there that you can let the host know that you need a break or that you're temporarily leaving the meeting. That's a good place to use those things rather than interrupt the speaker and ask for those. All right, if you're the host, you have some options. Mute participants on entry. Pretty good idea, right? We don't want people coming in with their dog barking into the middle of our meeting and disrupting our meeting. So I would say that's a great thing to do. Allow participants to unmute themselves. Yes, if you're conducting something that's an interactive training, they've got to be able to unmute themselves. This enter and exit chime is really distracting. In a long meeting, in a meeting where people may come in and out, or people get there late, you don't want that chime happening while you're presenting. So go ahead and take the enter exit chime off. And then you can also lock your meeting. Zoom has this new security button that has all those features, allowing people to share your screen. If you're a judge, allow attorneys to share their screen so that they can utilize the full features of these programs. The chat. Okay, so much is going on in the chat, guys, that shouldn't be going on in the chat. During these meetings, you'll see people laughing. Two people are laughing. It's pretty clear that they are talking to each other. We had a bond hearing the other day where the victim's family and the defendant's family got into an argument in the chat. And I promise you that the prosecutor was writing down everything that the victim's family was saying. And they didn't have to write it down because it was in the chat. And they get a transcript of the chat after whoever the host is gets a transcript of the chat. The chat should be used for questions and presentations. It should not be used for personal banter. even if you think it's a private message, okay? So here's the importance here. The private messages that you're sending between one another, they are given to the host afterwards. That's a lesson we've learned the hard way, some of us, okay? So do not use the chat for things that you don't want the host of that meeting to know, or really everybody in the meeting, because the host can share it. Also, there's a transcript of Zoom meetings that's produced after a Zoom meeting. If it's being recorded, those transcripts are really, really accurate, guys. So that's something that we need to be utilizing as litigators. If there's ask the host if there's a transcript of the meeting that is being recorded. We're going to talk about how to use the recording, sharing the screen, some of the advanced features coming up. So we will talk about all those things. But for now, that's what you need to know. Don't use the chat to have personal conversations. All right, so these are the Zoom basics, right? This is what you need to know just to get up and running, to be adept with the technology. What we want to tell you is that this stuff is all pretty intuitive, and it's not something that's really complicated. I'm not some tech guru. I am just a person who has spent a lot of time on Zoom and really had a desire to get better. So I practice, and you can practice. You know, host meetings with your friends and family. Use the features. Record yourself. See and hear what you look and sound like, so that when you go into court, you go into court with the utmost confidence that you've got this, all right? So that's the basics of Zoom. We're going to talk about some advanced features, technology, and advocating using Zoom coming up.